morning, everyone. This is our third of six sessions in SREB's webinar series this fall, bouncing back from COVID, using education and workforce development dollars. Thanks for joining us. We'd love for everyone to pop into the chat box and enter your name, the organization or institution you represent, and the state you're joining us from. You should also see a chat message in there from us, from Jasmine Jones, letting you know how to contact her with questions or difficulties regarding the Zoom or the chat box. And to kick us off and get us going on this third session this morning, I'd like to turn it over to SREB's president, Dr. Stephen Pruitt. Stephen.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. This is the third in our series. We have been extremely pleased with the number of people who have found the value in this and who continue to join us each week. I would be remiss if I did not once again lead off by just giving my public thanks to Kim and Dale and the team for just putting together such a great series. You know, and I wish I had some credit for this. The only credit I get for this is that I clicked join the meeting. They came to me with this idea, and man, I wish I had the idea, because it's really been fantastic. So where did it come from? You know, one of the things that we have been talking about a lot since the pandemic really started was we've got to do something to help our states think about how do they come back from this. Now, long before COVID, Kim was already working on this idea of a unified vision for workforce, because what we know is that our gaps continue to widen, and with COVID, they've actually gotten wider. We know that we had an issue coming with workforce, with the dependence on automation and artificial intelligence that's coming down the road. Megan Crow, who is one of our staff here at SREB, did a great project, actually it's been a couple of years ago now, around what's coming and the impact it's going to have on our economy. And in that, basically, we found that we have the potential for 18 million unemployable adults. Unemployable, not unemployed, but people that will be left behind because they don't have the skills to be able to be a part of this workforce. Most of those are going to be people who have high school diplomas or GEDs. And so Kim started this work with Essa Perkins and WIOA and how those things can come together. And we know that what's got to happen is we've got to have a unified vision for our workforce. From there, COVID hit, and now it's even more dire. Now, where we thought 2030 was our horizon, now it looks more like 2025. So this is pretty urgent and actually it's an emergency. It's something we've got to really get on top of. So our guiding question for our series has been, how can states use workforce and education dollars to really turn things around and to be thoughtful and innovative? So we've had great speakers to this point. We have more great speakers to hear from today. And so with that, I'm going to cede the floor to the wonderful Kim Anderson and let her go from here. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks. We're excited for today. Let's get an overview of where today fits into the series. So as Stephen mentioned, we are in an emergency that is just a little more dire than the emergency we were already in preparing our young people and our adults for the workforce and our industries to thrive in a global economy. So as we are sitting here trying to figure out how to best recover from COVID economically, we want to share with you through this series a six-pronged approach, right? We've been watching the struggles that people, educators, and industries are encountering, and we want to offer a way in or a perspective in from each of those standpoints. Each session like today's will stand alone. You can come to just today, grab and go with today, and that's it. Or if you join us for all six or more of them, by going to this website to grab the materials from previous sessions or forward the link to others to register, you can get the full picture that we provide. So the first week, and all these sessions are Thursdays at 11. So the first week, August 27th, was really a look at data. using data in more rapid cycles and more innovative ways than ever before. Last week was coming in at the perspective from our low-skilled adults, helping those with low skills and not yet anything above high school education earn those credentials, and not just any credential for any job, but for the jobs most critical to the state's economic recovery. Today, we're coming to the student perspective, thinking about our high school students and those who just graduated high school, helping them maintain their educational momentum past high school, or while still in high school, earn those credits and experiences towards those critical credentials. Next week, September 17th, we come in from the business perspective. How can we help businesses hire and prepare and hire new workers and upskill their incumbent workers for those emerging jobs, those critical jobs for economic recovery? The fifth session on September 24th comes at it from a programmatic perspective, whether it be in an education setting, a workforce training session, online, wherever. How can we make those programs more technologically savvy and flexible for the current COVID situation, as well as to keep up with changes that were already happening prior to COVID in the global economy? And then in the last session, session 6, we bring it all together with a really careful look at how state leaders can take the actions that they're putting in place now in this emergency, kind of under duress because of COVID, how we can knit those carefully into the state's long-term vision and plans for economic growth in the long term. So join us for all of these. We hope. Get any sessions you want from our website, those materials. In each session, in the hour or less that we have, we take a little time to inform our collective work together, talking about key strategies for policies and programs that SREB recommends based on the research and best practice. We spotlight, we hope this is a highlight for you, we spotlight resources, we call it a resource matrix for getting this done. And then the real kind of highlight, we're sure, for you is hearing from those high-flying states who really exemplify the strategies that we are talking about. We have time for presentations and discussion at the end with some polls and chat throughout. So before we dive into today's session, anything, Jasmine, from the chat box that we should address?
No questions here. It's going well. Thank you all for joining. We have people from all over Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina. They all say hello.
Great, great. So for today's session, our perspective today is on students, high school and just graduated, helping them maintain that momentum through and beyond high school and earn credits and credentials for those critical jobs. What I'd like to do is just set some common context for us for the strategies that we're then going to discuss. So we all have our own experience of going through the scale and the pace of change since COVID. What it looks like nationally is if you look, as we're doing just now, at unemployment insurance claims. And I think it's informative to take a long-term look at this. We can see here from as far back as the 60s all the way to this year in 2020, you can see across the bottoms the 5-year intervals of this data that we pulled from the National Bureau of Labor Statistics. So across the bottom, you see the years. Across the left, going up and down, are the numbers in millions of unemployment insurance and claims. And then you see in the orange circle pointing to one of the gray bars. All these gray bars you see across the decades are places where we experienced a recession in the US. And so we can see this maroon zigzag line across the bottom indicating the number of new unemployment insurance claims by weeks. We see that they don't even come close to 1 million. Cut to March of 2020. And the line shoots all the way up at the end, that last week, over 6.5 million new claims for unemployment insurance. And so the pace and the scale, both are just extraordinary. And as we're proceeding through these months into the new school year and beyond, we anticipate these fluctuations continuing with the virus and our responses to them, the changes that we're all going to have to deal with. The good thing is that amidst all this loss and chaos, there are good jobs out there for people with the right credentials. So we see that industries that are experiencing surges since COVID are things like various elements of the healthcare industry, grocery and warehouse managers. That occupation has a large number of openings of late. IT specialists, of course. I don't know if y'all saw the an announcement just the other day from Amazon. They're going to hire like 33,000 new people in the next couple of weeks. Just unbelievable. And then we have our industries that are changing wholesale sometimes how they do business, their whole model and the markets that they're targeting. So we have restaurants serving as grocery stores. We have gyms now offering online fitness. And in so many industries, we're doing business and leading virtually. And this all along the line with changes in industries and the economy writ large that are moving towards more technology, without COVID. So we know that our students are facing big challenges. We're going to hear from our presenters today about how they're helping to address that. From a couple of national surveys that we've looked at this week, we've seen that in the late spring, just about half of the rising freshman class, our new high school graduates, reported at the time a sudden change in their post-secondary plans due to job loss in the family because of COVID and the like, given the pandemic. And of that half of the upcoming freshman class, 40% of them reported now probably not being able to afford college. Of those kids, about a third reported that they planned to go straight to work. About a third reported having to delay their college plans. And of all the survey respondents, students of color and low-income students reported having greater academic, financial, and emotional tolls from the pandemic. So our students are dealing with a lot. Therefore, we must work with more creativity and urgency. We've got, again, our focus today, therefore. High school students, we want to figure out how to get them more credits and experience towards in-demand critical credentials while they're still in high school. Once they're out, keep that momentum going, get them on a fast track to those critical credentials, and addressing our equity gaps all along the way. What are the actions then that we're promoting today? There are three with a precursor, right? Our precursor is based on data, based on the data that you see as it evolves. We're thinking about prioritizing and expanding dual enrollment programs for high school students. Second, offering free summer post-secondary options for our brand new high school grads. And third, throughout 1 and 2, promoting equity. Let's go ahead and take a look. So our precursor, we won't spend much time on this, and indeed I'm going to kind of go at a clip through our recommendations today because we're going to hear from our presenters how the recommendations live. Okay, so pardon the clip, but I'm really going to move through this. I'll just repeat again that if you didn't catch our first webinar on more rapid cycle and innovative data analysis to drive economic recovery, you got to go get it. The folks from Indiana are just knocking it out of the park. It's truly inspirational what they're doing in this diverse leadership group and drawing on their data experts and industry partnerships. It's really terrific. Based on that data, we need to be identifying credentials that are the most critical now. So we may be having to change what is our list of in-demand credentials, right, that we do for Perkins and WIOA and the like, that we often do on multi-year cycles or at the most annually. Now looking more than annually, what are the most in-demand credentials now? And the credentials that are valued by industries and stackable, so we get kids into those entry-level credentials and they have a pathway to growing credentials and degrees throughout their career. The credentials, certainly for the moment, that are the fastest to be earned, get kids up and running and into the workforce, and that with that long-term vision, nonetheless, we're sure are gonna have value over the long haul with our vision. Our two actions of the three, our first two are, first, again, prioritizing dual enrollment and offering free secondary, post-secondary options. So with dual enrollment, though that term can mean a lot of different things, from dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, early college, high school, and the like, we're kind of lumping that all together with dual enrollment. When we talk about early post-secondary options, I just want to highlight that that can be things like our academic, our CTE courses, as well as industry training and work-based learning experiences. So, for example, we'll hear today about some academic and CTE courses happening through Northern Virginia Community College, but we can also draw on our colleagues around the region, for example, in Louisiana, through their Jumpstart Summers that are offering those opportunities, plus work-based learning experience and industry training, giving kids stipends even to help them use that summer well in and just beyond high school to get closer to those jobs. For these two actions, we're going to lay out just a couple kind of really foundational policy and programmatic recommendations that, again, we're going to hear how they really live in our presenters today. The first being having clear goals. So SREB has a dual enrollment initiative we'll hear about in just a moment. That's really highlighting the need for clear goals in terms of having the courses that are offered count towards those critical workforce and industry credentials for our workforce vision, having clear goals around the quality and content of the courses and instructor qualifications and the like. A real linchpin we know comes with aligned policies. One of our colleagues, Tim Shaughnessy, who's very knowledgeable about dual enrollment, is really leading some of our work on that, has called it the wild, wild west, right? We want to make sure that it's not the wild, wild west, but rather that our policies are aligned to ensure 3 and more. Here's just sort of the top 3 that we picked to highlight today. Ensuring that the credits and training that our students get then actually count when they get to that post-secondary education towards those critical credentials. That policies are in place across our institutions in the state for universal credit transfer. And we may want to think a little bit together about this idea with the pandemic this spring and many institutions going to pass-fail grading, making sure that our policies are aligned so that when those courses that have a pass grade down the road are countable when normally they would have, say, a letter grade or whatever. So we want to make sure that all kinds of elements of policies align and that there's an accelerated timeline to credentials, so ensuring that those policies around things like financial aid or the routes students must take through a program once they're in a post-secondary institution, that they're all aligned right so students aren't stalled or held up, even though they have the dual enrollment or other kinds of experience behind them. This is all going to require strong and inclusive partnerships. So again, making sure those high school, district, the post-secondary industry partners and the students and communities we serve are around the table looking at how we're going to adjust things as we go to help students get those credentials and credits, and student supports, which we're going to hit just a second here when we talk a little bit more about equity. So those are some of our clear top line policy and programmatic considerations. As well, third, throughout that, we want to think about promoting equity. So we have kind of 2 places to think about it, although it certainly spans the rainbow of timelines, but there's now and looking ahead. So when we think about now putting these policies or these recommendations in place, some things come to mind. Awareness and entry requirements for our dual enrollment and these summer post-secondary opportunities. So making sure to get with kids, all kids, each kid, around what are the careers that are of value out there for me coming up upon graduation? What are the jobs that are open? What's the education I need to get them? And what are my opportunities here while I'm in school and just graduating to speed my road along? Thinking about entry requirements, we know from research as well as our experience and best practice that many more kids can do well and benefit from dual enrollment than do. And so when it comes to entry requirements, thinking about things like universal screening and automatic enrollment triggers, open enrollment, multiple measures for qualification, all kinds of ways to make sure the levers bring more kids and more diverse kids into our dual enrollment and these post-secondary opportunities. Of course, we want to think about ways, and that's later today in the session, about braiding our funding together so that tuition, fees, and other kinds of costs, that burden is lifted off of our students. And one key way, in addition to tuition and fees, is of course materials. So open educational resources. And we'd love to highlight some work in Georgia today around that. We know that all the technical colleges in Georgia that offer dual enrollment use OER. So this work is doable at scale. And then of course, our good strategies of mentoring, communication at key points with students to promote persistence, tutoring, ensuring, especially under COVID, that we have that technology and internet access. And if there are, when there are opportunities offered offsite, that we have transportation supports. These are just a few. We may hear about several others with our presenters. But while we're putting together those policies and programs for the now, looking ahead as well and not losing the sight of the long-term trajectory and our equity questions. And so we're thinking about things, about ways to help students get those FAFSAs done, their program applications done for down the road. We'll hear some today about some flexibility in financial aid determinations and those appeals processes, right? As family incomes change and maybe seesaw. rapidly through this pandemic. What are ways that students can more easily go through financial aid appeals to get the help that they need? Ongoing supports for them of the types that we just highlighted, and all the way through keeping workplace readiness and career exposure high on the list so that when kids get out of these programs, young adults, they're ready to go into their careers. So we're going to reflect for just a moment, and then I'll take a chance in the chat box to see what's coming up. But first, I'd love for us to use a Zoom feature that maybe some of us have used and maybe some of us might not be familiar with. We hope everyone's Zoom allows this. If it doesn't, feel free to use the chat box. But for many of us, if you look down in your Zoom taskbar at the bottom, you'll see kind of a view options. And when you go down, you should see a check mark for stamps. If you click on that stamps, feel free to choose any stamp you like and do the following. Annotate for us here, and Jasmine, pop an annotation in of your own so you can see what it's going to look like. Mark the strategy, the equity strategy that at this moment is most challenging to you. This is going to help us at SREB and us as colleagues in the field understand where we really want to focus our equity efforts. What is the equity strategy most challenging to you now? Okay, I see some popping up. We have our eye on this really heavily at SREB, and we want to continue to evolve our supports for you to help you address these very things where we're going to see the most annotations. Yeah. Transportation, tuition and fees, technology and internet so far have the most. Yep. Awareness. Okay, we're listening. Yep. Great, Jasmine. What has popped up maybe in the chat box about this sort of poll or anything else in the last few minutes that we want to take a moment to look at together?
Of course. So we had some notes on technology and internet access, mentoring, transportation, really echoing what's showing up there on the board.
Yeah. Good. I'm happy to say we're going to get some inspiration today from our presenters on these very strategies. Thank you. We are listening at SREB. And let's wipe those. And just before we go to our resource look, I would be remiss if I didn't mention SREB's dual enrollment initiative. I'm just going to say super quick that right now we're gathering leaders led by an advisory panel of policymakers, educators, and students to work on the challenges around dual enrollment and early post-secondary opportunities in the region and really nationally. So we're gathering folks to define the purpose of dual enrollment, to disseminate promising policies and practices, address those common issues that we're all bumping up against, and to provide technical assistance to SREB states. Also, we have a terrific research brief that has come out to kind of guide that work. Check us out at this website. It's some really inspirational work. I don't know if Stephen and Dale, you wanted to pop in and say anything about that, but it's really kind of inspirational and leading the way for us as we think about this moving forward. So let's take a look at the resources. This is what I mentioned early on in my intro. We hope that this piece is a nice value added for you guys and your colleagues as you come back to our website and grab this PowerPoint slide. What we've put together for every session is a tailored resource matrix. So they're all going to look like this in the format. And it's resources for fill in the blank, right? So today it's helping students earn credentials for these critical jobs. We know that as we bring together our diverse and broad leadership coalition to do that data analysis and chart our path, that we all come with expertise in a funding source or two or a few, right? But not everybody comes with expertise in all of them. So our hope here is to put together a high-level look at all the ways we can braid funding sources together and build all of our capacity, our sort of financial policy capacity. So before we go in and fill in this resource matrix for you, I'd love for you to be so kind as to go one more time into that annotation, because we at SREB, as we again shape our supports for you, we want to kind of get a feel for the region. Where do we have varying or the most sets of expertise? Use that annotation. What funding source do you know the most about? And our gaps are going to tell us where we want to fill in the blanks. A lot of WIOA, a lot of state funds. A lot of state funds. Okay. A little bit of other. It's wonderful the mix of people we're getting on these webinars, because I'm happily surprised that we have so many who on today's session that are familiar with WIOA. This is great. Okay. So then let's go ahead and highlight here, based on this feedback, ESSA, Perkins, and CARES Act. So thank you, Jasmine, for wiping these annotations. And let's take a look at this filled in. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm going to pick out a few things. Our hope is that you'll take this, grab this, print it off, take it to a meeting, and go. But as we look at these key sources we can braid together, I'll just highlight from the red that I've marked the ESSA and Perkins, maybe, and one from CARES Act. So there are the usual sources, if you will, under ESSA that funds K-12 education under Title I, local program funds that those who are familiar with ESSA, they're probably going to go there first, right? But did we know, or we want to highlight, that states can use those Title I funds for direct student services? That amount they're able to hold back for those services and then provide out to the districts for dual enrollment and these kinds of opportunities, as well as our Title IV-A student support and academic enrichment grants for well-rounded education can fund dual enrollment and CTE, right? We want to think about, in Perkins especially, our state reserve funds and state leadership funds, which can be used to foster broadened and innovative work across the state for dual enrollment and early post-secondary opportunities, noting that dual enrollment is now a key element of the very definition of CTE. And under the CARES Act, one last thing I'll highlight, the Reimagine Workforce Preparation Grants, the deadline has just passed, it was late August, for submitting those. I know lots of states did. I understand we expect award announcements soon. If your state gets them, know that there's an opportunity to focus that funded work on the very kinds of efforts we're talking about today. So let's go ahead to what we've really all been waiting for. And let's hear from our two presenters. Again, we've really curated today and in each session some of the best that are gonna help us see these strategies alive in action. We have one of our presenters today who represents kind of the K-12 perspective and the partnership perspective on dual enrollment. And then our second presenter comes in for the those post-secondary summer opportunities, that second action, and they're both going to talk about equity. So we welcome this morning Dr. John Tucker, superintendent of the Camden County Schools in Georgia, to talk with us about their dual enrollment program. Thank you, Dr. Tucker, and welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, I would say first of all, I like to, we're in Southeast Georgia. We've led the state in dual enrollment. Students taking dual enrollment courses the last 4 years. We've been #1 in the state. We have a large percentage of our students take dual enrollment. They don't even know they're taking the class. We have largest, and it's not just the academic courses, it's also the CTAE courses. Just about all of our academic courses that you could think of and CTAE courses that we offer are all dual enrollment. We have the largest CTA program in the state. We have 32 CTA teachers. So we offer culinary arts, criminal justice, business, computer classes, welding, construction, auto mechanics, nursing. That's just to name a few. Engineering classes that are CTA classes. With the academic, we all all the social science classes, including psychology, fine arts. We have the art appreciation. We have all the math courses. We have college algebra, statistics, calculus, AB calculus, and BC calculus, which was intertwined with the our AP classes. We have physics, dual enrollment physics, chemistry, biology, English classes. We have the language arts and the lit class as far as the dual enrollment, combined with, like I said, all of our CTA classes. When I first started at the high school principal, I wanted to increase our AP program, and we had one of the largest AP programs in the state, south of Atlanta. And so the technical school kept wanting to talk to us about dual enrollment, and I said, I was concerned because of a lot of our dual enrollment classes were also our state assessment classes, and students failed the end of course test that they get a retest, and of course I wanted us to be responsible for remediating those students. So I told them, why can't we teach the classes ourselves? Why can't our teachers teach the classes? And why can't we combine AP with dual enrollment? So that's what we did. They went to the college board and got permission. So we actually have our AP and dual enrollment classes are taught together. We started credentialing our teachers to teach for the college. So really our dual enrollment program is housed from within. All of our dual enrollment classes are taught by our own teachers. We credential our teachers. We started with probably a dozen teachers, and we've went to just what I mentioned. 30 or 40 teachers now are credentialed to teach college classes through this technical school. And in the state of Georgia, technical schools, you can also earn your core classes, your English class, English, math, science, social studies, your general ed classes that you would take the first 2 years of college. So since our teachers are already getting paid by the system, we negotiate a contract with the college every year because our teachers are teaching the classes. They're already getting paid by the school system. They're taught in our building, so we pay the power and utility bills. We supply the rooms. The students already have transportation, so it takes out the fact of the socioeconomic status. If students don't have to have a car to take the classes because the classes are taught at the high school. All our dual enrollment classes are taught at the high school, so we are able to pay. We use it as a recruiting tool because we probably, I would estimate, we're up to close to $200,000 a year with our contract that we get from the college, because we have so many students taking dual enrollment classes, and we take that $200,000 and invest it directly back into the dual enrollment program. And we do this by offering to allow teachers, we pay for teachers' master's degree. We use it as a recruiting tool to hire math teachers or science teachers, and as part of our hiring process, if you'll come work for us, we'll pay for your master's degree, and then we'll allow you to teach dual enrollment classes at our high school. We also use it to hire potential teachers that act as tutors for at-risk students. So we have about 20 of those that we use as a recruiting tool, a recruiting pool to hire our future teachers. That's where we hire many of our future teachers from, is that tutoring pool, where we're paying them $25 an hour to tutor at-risk population. That money comes from the money we earn from dual enrollment. We have a number of students every year that leave the high school and enroll in major universities as sophomores across the country. I know my daughter graduated 2 years ago with 75 hours. We had a student that graduated this year and went to UGA, and not only did he enter as a sophomore, but many of his credits that he earned were applied for his, not only just his general studies for the first 2 years, but 18 hours of his major, since he was going to be a business major. So it's been a success for our students, our teachers, because example, our physics teachers and outstanding physics teachers, and I have kids that go to Ivy League schools, and they'll come back and tell me how prepared they were in physics, and she only had a 4-year degree. And I asked her, I said, you're, teaching this physics class at such a high level. Why don't you go back and get your master's degree? Because it'd be a $6,000 a year raise for you. And she says, I just can't afford to. I don't have the money to go back. So with the money we receive from dual enrollment, it allowed us to pay her to take her get her master's degree in physics, and she did this online through Texas A&M. It cost $20,000, but we used our dual enrollment, so now she can teach that physics class as a dual enrollment class. So it is really, as far as helping our teachers out and making our teachers feel appreciated, it certainly has done that, and it certainly has helped our college students, because they enter college, many of them as sophomores, and then we use the extra money we have to tutor our at-risk students. And like I said, we're Title I school, but last 2 years we have been the #1 academic school at the secondary system level in the state. The second place school had 18% free and reduced lunch students in the state, and like I said, we're Title I. Our system's closer to 50% free and reduced lunch, and yet we had the highest academic score, which is in Georgia. You get a CCRPI score, and our score was 95.4. Graduation rate was over 95. And like I said, many of the students, because just our classes, most of our classes, especially the CTE, are dual enrollment. So kids are sitting in the classes and they don't even realize they're taking dual enrollment classes. And when they graduate, they say, "Oh, I've got credits." And I think one item I really believed helped was we've been trying to get a technical school in our county for close to 2 decades, and they kept saying we didn't have any students weren't taking dual enrollment classes. Well, we led the state the last 4 years in dual enrollment. They built the technical school in our county, and they just opened this August. So those students that are starting technical classes can now finish their certification or getting whatever they want to pursue at the technical school. They can finish at that facility that we have in our county. And I think a large part of it had to do with the thousands of students that we have that are receiving dual enrollment credit. So that's basically it. What we have been able to accomplish with our dual enrollment program by making it in-house.
Dr. Tucker, it's super inspirational. Can I ask one follow-up question?
Sure.
We had spoken the other day about ways in which this initiative, you were using it, as I understood, but it's a question here. You were using it with some other regional leaders as a leverage point in an application for a
spaceport.
Right. So I'd love to hear for you to share, folks, a little about that with the lens of that really gets at the point of looking at what in-demand industries are now, or at least that could be that we're planning, that we see in the data, and how to use these kinds of strategies to address that.
Well, I mean, as far as the selling point for us to be awarded the spaceport in our county, I mean, we've added to our resume that now we have a technical school, so we can train, whatever training that they need, we'll offer that training through the technical school. And then, we have an engineering program at our high school, for engineers that could possibly, work at the spaceport. So, I mean, we have the resources available in our school that's going to certainly increase our chances, to acquire that spaceport. And they'll build build the spaceport in Camden County, which would be a tremendous asset for our students. We lose many of our advanced students because there's just not, that there's there's some engineering jobs at our Kings Bay Naval Base, but if we had a spaceport, it would increase the opportunities for many members of our community and our students to be able to come back to Camden County and work.
Thank you. Just truly inspirational. Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a really, really great look at leveraging some of the power of partnerships and funding sources and equity elements into growing the dual enrollment program. Let's hear now from our second presenter, which offers a really inspirational look at that second strategy we highlight, offering post-secondary opportunities to our new graduates. All right, so we're going to hear from Dr. Anne Kress, college president at Northern Virginia Community College, to talk with us about the college's Jump Start program. Dr. Kress.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll run through this really quickly. You certainly want to leave some time for questions, and that truly was an inspirational presentation. It's going to be really hard to follow that. So just to talk a little bit about Jumpstart, and I'll give you a sense of who we are at NOVA, Northern Virginia Community College. So we serve Northern Virginia. We have about 70,000 students across our 6 campuses at NOVA. And we also serve multiple school districts, multiple counties, and some city school districts. And so on a typical year, we have about 12,000 students in dual enrollment, what in Virginia is called contract dual enrollment. And so that really sets the context for the program that we developed. Because when everything shifted remote in March, what we heard really quickly from our high school partners were a lot of concerns about summer melt, about that college going momentum, for lots of different reasons, all of which made complete sense. Virginia at the K-12 level paused education, did not go immediately into remote. They needed to work through some equity and access issues. And so students in the school districts really went without instruction for a number of weeks as well. It put all of our dual enrollment contracts on pause also. So it really was a very disrupted year for students. So what we thought about was also the economic context, right? It is typical that folks think of Northern Virginia as fairly affluent. And certainly there are neighborhoods that are, and there are school districts that have free and reduced lunch rates of 7%. But there are also districts that have free and reduced lunch rates that are well over 50%, some approaching or exceeding 80% per high school. So what we knew was that the financial futures of many of these families who likely worked in the service industry were really compromised. And again, that's another thing that's really going to impact students' ability to move on to college. So we were looking at summer and trying to figure out how could we use this as a way of sort of bringing students back into that college momentum. But Virginia, you talked about the Wild West of high school dual enrollment. So I've worked in 3 states now, Florida, New York, and now Virginia. And every state has different rules. And Virginia has very clear rules around when you can and cannot reduce the cost of college courses for students who are still in high school. And what we were thinking about was really outside of that purview. So we were going to have to charge families basically $550, we'll call it, per course to make this happen. So we knew we needed to find other funds. So if you want to switch the slide. So first thing we had to do is Virginia requires that the schools opt in. So we reached out, I personally reached out to every single superintendent in our service district and said, you know, if we were to offer summer concurrent, right, not dual, concurrent, and that these are college courses offered to high school students, but they do not necessarily count for high school classes. If we were to do that, would you guys opt in? And to a district, they said yes. We also reached out to the private schools in our catchment area as well, and they all said yes. And what we proposed was that high school seniors, right, who were about to graduate, could take up to 2 courses off of a short list of classes for free. So essentially families would be getting up to an $1,100 scholarship. So those courses, to some of the discussion earlier, we chose very intentionally. They were either going to be part of what in Virginia is called the Passport, which is a set of general education courses that transfers from community colleges onto four-year institutions fairly readily. They are broadly written enough so that they apply to most every major. They would fill those gen ed requirements that any student would have. Or we also reached out to our partners at Amazon Web Services, we have a great working relationship with them on our CTE programs, to see if they would partner with us on an intro to cloud computing. That is an area of huge need in the state of Virginia. Lots of job openings. So we thought if we could get some students interested in that going forward, this would be wonderful. And they of course said yes. And then we proposed a short 6-week term, right, that would start basically when students were graduated from high school, but would end early enough in July so that students weren't giving up their whole summer. We were kind of realistic about this. I'm the mom of 2 teenagers. I try to be realistic about these things. So we were ready to go. So next slide. So then we had to promote this program, right? We had this great idea, but what do you do? So the school districts were wonderful in promoting it to parents. They also pushed it out to the PTA groups. It picked up tons of Facebook chatter. It was lots of social media. I did Zooms with parents by district talking about Jumpstart and other programs at Nova. I was on a discussion call with Senator Mark Warner from Virginia, who is a big fan of dual enrollment. Who heard this idea and sort of promoted it very widely. It actually created some problems for us because it got outside of our service district, so we had to say no to some people. The Chambers of Commerce really loved it because, again, they saw that summer melt could be a problem. And so from the initial spark of that idea, and this sort of goes to that speed to lead mentality, we had this idea, and within 2 months, we were offering our first courses. And so we kept expanding the number of seats that we had available. We wound up with about 2,600 students, and each student took an average of 1.6 courses. So some of them took 1, some of them took 2. But you know, the response we had was unbelievable. We actually had to sort of shut off the spigot at a certain point. We couldn't find enough instructors to teach these classes. So we did initially plan to use CARES Act institutional stimulus funds and got the okay that this was an allowable use, but Nova is part of the Virginia Community College system, and the VCCS wanted to take a very specific sort of VCCS-wide approach to all the colleges using their institutional stimulus funds in a similar way. So we pivoted and we used our institutional scholarship funds, which we could do. And what we saw was that this was incredibly powerful. We heard from students, we heard from their families that this, you know, it made a difference, that students were not necessarily thinking about going to college. I need to pause, and I know there was a whole lot of rhetoric around gap years going into this fall, and I know a lot of students haven't started college. And our big concern was that the students we're talking about, if they don't start college right away, they are likely not to start college, right? They don't take gap years, they just don't go. So we really wanted to push that. So we also pushed in FAFSA information and workshops for parents, and we pushed in FAFSA information in English and in Spanish because our largest population aside, we have no majority student population at Nova. About 1/3 of our students are white, about 27% of our students are Latinx, and that's the second largest population. So we wanted to make sure families in our region had the materials that they needed. We also promoted something we rolled out this fall. As far as we can tell within the state and probably across several states, Nova is the first community college to offer a bi-weekly payment plan for college. So students can actually pay for college now, just like they might pay any other bill every other week all the way through the end of the semester. So we wanted families to understand you're going to get this scholarship now, but know that college is affordable on the schedule that you're looking for. And this was so successful actually that we're working with one of our counties now on potentially using some of their funds to the institution to support scholarships like this for concurrent, not dual, but concurrent enrollment going forward. And so then the question is, like, what happened? And I think those are the next slides. So the Jumpstart results are here. Those are the counties and the districts that we serve. Where it says Other Virginia, those are the private schools within our catchment area that we partnered with. I have a couple arrows there. Just want to point out that Prince William County and Alexandria, we often think of Alexandria Old Town if you've been here. It's a lovely area, but Alexandria City Schools have a free and reduced lunch rate of 65%. So to see that not only we got good enrollment, it's a small little district, we got good enrollment from those districts, but that the percent that went from summer to fall, they're still here at Nova. For Prince William County, again, an area with a number of opportunity zones, 42%, Alexandria 32%, out in Manassas, again, free and reduced lunch rates in some of those high schools above 70%. 44% of the students who started in Jumpstart are here this fall, 36% here this fall. Overall, 34%, which is about 10 points higher than our typical conversion rate for high school graduates. The outsized number there for Fairfax County, know that Fairfax County is, I think, the 11th largest school district in the country. So it is a behemoth in our region, but even within Fairfax County, you have high schools at both ends of the spectrum, right? Some of the highest performing, most affluent high schools and some high schools with challenges. So we were really happy to partner with them. And then the next slide. So, and you can see when we think about equity, when we think about access, again, you can see that this falls in line pretty much with our student population, a little more overrepresentation of white students, which I know is a challenge in dual enrollment across the board. When I put my little annotation, for me, it was information. So often families don't get access to information about dual enrollment. But for us, when you look at the percent of students who are retained into fall, it's incredibly powerful to see that 60% of the Latinx students who started persisted into fall, to see the 32% of the African-American students who took those Jumpstart courses are here with us this fall is fantastic. And know that those are courses that transfer anywhere. So those students are not necessarily not in college, they just didn't come to Nova. 82% of the students who took these courses in a 6-week term earned grades of C or better. I had faculty who taught the courses writing me saying they'd never enjoyed teaching a summer class more. I had students write me about how this changed their life. You can see the GPAs there that, you know, on average it's a B. The students who wound up with us in summer, it's probably a B minus, C plus, or who persisted from summer into fall. But I think the best thing we heard was from parents who said, okay, this was for seniors, this is great. My daughter is a junior now. Are you going to do this again next summer? Will you do this every summer? And then when we, dove a little more deeply into the data, what we saw, sort of to the point, the broader point about workforce, is that the majority of students indicated that they were going into programs in business, in IT, in engineering. They were pre-health. So they were really using these courses to accelerate their college education, recognizing that this made it much more affordable. So with that, I'll stop talking.
There we go. Terrific. Again, inspirational. 2 really inspirational looks at these strategies. I want to thank you, Dr. Kress, and again, Dr. Tucker. Let's take a minute and do some discussion. We've got about 6 minutes left by my clock, which is not ideal. That's not a great amount of time, but it does allow us some time to kind of process together some of what we're doing. We'd like to use Zoom's poll feature and talk about 3 things in fairly rapid succession. We're going to ask to hear from you as our participants. What were the highlights from what we talked about today? Questions you have and actions that, based on today's information, you feel you should take or that you can take. Hopefully this spurs thinking for each of us, and as well as, again, gives us inspiration at SREB on supporting you moving forward. So Jasmine, let's go ahead and see if we can pop up our polls. So here's our first question for everyone, and if the poll really doesn't work for you, feel free to use the chat box, it's fine. What stands out to you today? You can pick as many as apply, but prioritize as you feel you should here. Was it the dual enrollment strategy, the free summer post-secondary options, the equity considerations we talked about, the resource matrix, our Georgia or Virginia examples or some other. Thanks for taking a moment and highlighting that for us, and it will give people just shy of a minute to respond, and we'll see how our responses together come out. Five more seconds, and we've got them. All right, so what are we finding? Yep, free summer post-secondary options, equity, and the corollary example from Virginia look like the highest. That's really inspirational. Maybe because it's a little more out of the norm than dual enrollment, which has been on folks' radar, right, for a while. So that's interesting. Okay, duly noted for us as we shape our work in the region. Let's take a look at question 2. Air, which topics do you have the most questions on? So where would you like some follow-up on, or for us to connect back with you on? And it's the same set of choices. Where are you really scratching your head or looking for more information? Okay, a few more seconds. All right, Jasmine, what have we got? Wowza. Okay, again, that newer strategy we heard about, these free summer post-secondary options and the resources piece, as well as equity, really standing out. Okay. All right, I'm feeling some good motivation here moving forward. And question 3. So based on what you've heard today, what this has spurred in your thinking, what do you plan on doing next with this information? Reaching out to your own colleagues, reaching out to partners in that diverse leadership coalition we talked about, diving into your data, digging deeper into this webinar, so maybe going back and getting our materials or forwarding them, or other, feel free to share in the chat box. What's going to be your next action? Okay. All right. Two clear things stand out, diving deeper into what we've talked about today. Again, we'll have the link here as we close the session to get other colleagues of yours registered for these sessions, and the same link to find materials from these sessions. So we do hope that you dig back in. Thank you for that feedback. Jasmine, is there anything from the chat box that's kind of stand out or different than we've heard from the polls?
No, Kim, a lot of it's just echoing what you shared before. Great gratitude to the speakers, highlighting some important tools and facts, a lot of feedback, just agreeing and looking forward to getting more information and more involved.
Yeah, really good. All right, really nice. So as we move forward to close out this session, please do take more advantage of that chat box in that. As we look at the chat box afterwards here at SREB, and certainly others, as you download our recorded session, if there are related or similar efforts in your state that, of course, we didn't have time to talk about today, but that are also inspirational, pop those in the chat box for us. We want to hear about it. And all right, so I've said it before, I'll say it again. Join us for the series. We come around next week for the business perspective, hiring and preparing new workers, upskilling our incumbent workers. That's going to be top of the line next week. And you see what's coming up in the rest of the series. Here, we stand ready to support you. Reach out to us. And we'll ask a favor as you're heading out of the session, if you would be so kind. Again, dive into that chat box. As your sayonara, would you pop us a note? What was a strong element from today, or something that we could improve? We have 3 more sessions, so what can we do better, and what support might you look for from us? And with that said, as you're entering that into the chat box and we're saying goodbye for the day, I again want to thank our colleagues, Dr. Kress and Dr. Tucker from Georgia and Virginia, for just really making our kind of, I don't want to whatever, but little dry recommendations, right? We have these policy and program recommendations. You really made them live in your examples. So we really want to thank you for that and for your time. Thanks to all of you for being here with us. And again, spread the word, share the link. We'd love to see us all together around the table next week and going back to the links. All right, have a great day. Stephen, would you like to send us out?
I will just say thank you to everybody for being here. It was a great day, another great set of presentations. To our presenters, thank you so much for being here. Hope all of you have a great weekend, and hope you join us next Thursday, same SREB time, same SREB channel.
Bye-bye all.
Thank you all for continuing to send in your feedback. I'm making record of it. So you're more than welcome to keep sending me notes using the chat box or log off. Thank you again.
Yep, very good.
Okay, I think that was maybe our last feedback. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.